Good morning, Mrs. Lett here. Today I'm going to review with you coordinate planes, ordered pairs, and X and Y axis. So in Unit 2, what we learned is that two number lines can intersect into what we call a coordinate plane. So we've previously learned that a number line is a line with numbers on it, and that the middle of the line is 0. Everything to the right on the line is in the positive. So I'm going to mark that in red. For this video, I'm just going to go up to 5. 2, 3, 4, and 5. So again, everything to the right is positive, and everything to the left is negative. And again, I'm just going to go to 5 for this video. 4, 5. Negative 5, negative 1. Negative sign there. Okay? Now, in Unit 2, we stepped it up a notch, and we intersect that number line with a vertical number line. It's the same concept as the horizontal line, except it goes up and down. So 0 is in the middle, and everything up is positive. So I will count to 5 going up. And again, everything up is positive. Everything down will be negative. So I count to 5 again, using negative numbers. It seems really complicated, but it's really just two number lines that are put together in a cross. So remember, the middle is 0. The X is 0 and the Y is 0, because this line is 0 and this line is 0. We call this middle point the origin. It's kind of hard to see in blue, so I'm going to write it in red. Origin. Now, when we're using a coordinate plane, since there are two number lines that are intersecting, we need two numbers put together to find a point. This is called an ordered pair. Pair means two, so it means two numbers. So for example, if I were going to find a point in this quadrant, I would need two positive numbers because the X line is positive and the Y line is positive. So let's label that. X line is the sideways line. That number always comes first in the pair. Y line is the vertical line. Kind of looks like a Y tail. It goes down. That number always comes second in the ordered pair. Mr. Taylor taught us that X comes before Y in the alphabet, and it does the same in math. So the X comes before the Y. Well, why does that happen, Ms. Lett? Because it's easier to find a point on the grid if you go sideways first and then up or down. This is something that you really have to do on paper, so it would help if you draw out your own coordinate plane. Now, after we know where the origin is, which is in the middle, it's always good to label your quadrants. Quadrant means 4, so there are 4 sections of our plane. The first quadrant is in the upper right-hand corner. In this quadrant, all your numbers will be positive. So I always like to write out to the side plus, comma, plus. That means my ordered pair, both the X and the Y, will be positive. So if Mr. Taylor says, Mrs. Lett, find 2, 2 on the plane, I'd go over to positive 2 and then up to positive 2, and I'd put my dot right there because 2, 2 is both positive. My next quadrant is quadrant 2. In quadrant 2, my x is negative because I go to the left, and my y is positive because I go up. So if he says, Mrs. Lett, find negative 2, 3, I put my finger on origin, I go over negative 2, and it was 3, so I go up positive 3, and I put my dot right there. In quadrant 2, our ordered pair will be a negative and then a positive number. Next comes quadrant 3, that's down here. Quadrant 3 is the only quadrant that has 2 negative numbers, because if we put our point on origin and we go negative 2, let's say he said negative 4. Both numbers are negative, so I'd go over left and down to get into quadrant 3. Kind of like following a map. The very last one is quadrant 4. Quadrant 4 is positive and negative. So we put our finger on the origin. Again, the origin is the middle. The ordered pair for origin is 0, 0 because they're both at 0. And then for this one, we're moving into the positive. So let's say our numbers were 4, negative 3. Over to 4, down to negative 3. Because in quadrant 4, my numbers will be positive comes first, so to the right, and then negative down below. So again, a coordinate plane is just 2 number lines. It helps if you draw it out and if you take it slow. The horizontal line is called the x-axis and the vertical line is called the y. There are 4 quadrants. The first quadrant has 2 positive numbers in their pair. The second quadrant is negative positive. The third is negative negative. And the fourth is positive negative. Now the next thing we need to know is, well, how do I find a point on this grid? So I'm going to give you a number. Let's say our number is, I'm going to write it at the top, 5 and negative 5. 5, negative 5. Well, I start at 0. 5 is positive, right? So I go over to number 5, and then negative 5 is in the negative, so I'm going down to negative 5, and I see where those 2 lines intersect. If I had drawn a line here, I'd follow it all the way down until I got to the next number in my pair, which was negative 5. I'm just going to guess because I'm doing it backwards, and I'm going to write it right there. That's my point. Then let's say Mr. Taylor gave us the numbers. Let's do 5 and positive 5. They're both positive. So 2 positive numbers means it'll be in this first quadrant. So again, I start at 0. I go over to 5 because it's positive. And then I'm going to go up to 5 because it's positive. Now, what he's going to ask us is, what's the distance between this point and this point? If he gives you a grid, all you do is count the lines. You could start at the top or at the bottom. If I start at the top, I'm going to count how many lines are in between, or how many lines does it take me to get to this one. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get to the axis, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 to get down to the dot. Now, if he does not give you a grid, you have to do some work. So step 1, look at your ordered pair. These were our 2 sets of numbers, 5, 5, and 5, negative 5. Step 2, what numbers are the same? Oh, these positive 5s match. This is a 5, but this is a 5, but this is a negative 5. that doesn't match, but this 5 matches this 5. So I cross the x out because they match. Now I'm left with 5 and negative 5. So the next step is, what's the absolute value of 5? Well, it's 5. What's the absolute value of negative 5? 5. Because absolute values are always positive. Now I have two 5s, so now I ask myself, are those numbers in this, or are those points in the same quadrant? Nope. So since they're not in the same, we're going to add. If they were in the same means subtract. SS. Same quadrant, subtract your numbers. Different quadrant, add. There's a D in add. So we add 5 and 5 and we get the distance is 10. When we counted, did we get 10 lines? Yep. So that's one way you can check. Or, again, if he gives it to you on a grid, take the easy way and count the lines. But he is going to give you some questions where he doesn't give you the grid. So you will have to look at the ordered pair, cross out the numbers that are the same, and add if they're in the same quadrant, add if they're in a different quadrant, and subtract if they're in the same. So one last quick review. A coordinate plane is just two number lines. If you think of it like that, it will help your brain. The middle point is 0, 0, and we call it the origin. The sideways line is x, the up and down is y. I remind myself because y has an up and down tail. There are 4 quadrants, 1, 2, 3, 4. Everything in this quadrant is positive. Your ordered pair would be a positive number. Positive to the right, positive to the top. Everything in the second quadrant will be a negative number, then a positive number because we go left to the negative, up to the positive. In the third quadrant, everything is negative because we went left to the negative, down to the negative. And then in the fourth quadrant, it will be a positive number, then a negative number because we went right to the positive, down to the negative. There's lots of other videos on YouTube that you could use. Khan Academy has great lessons as well that reviews this concept. Any questions or need more help, set up a time to meet with Ms. Lett. Have a great day.